please start. Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay, guys, we are starting the stream up again in about 5 seconds. Okay, we are going live. Okay, everyone, welcome back to the Ludus Press's coverage of E3 2016. EA's press conference just wrapped a couple minutes ago, and so we have returned to give our thoughts and continue talking about the rest of E3 because we didn't really finish talking about our overall thoughts of E3 this year before we got cut off by EA. So, let's go through what EA had for us this year.
A lot of sports stuff.
Yeah, that's, my issue with EA is that the middle of it is always filled with sports junk.
Well, you know what? I mean, I can't really blame them for that because they're kind of, not that they're the only name out there when it comes to sports, but I mean, they're the heavy hitters and they know that. I mean, that's what's profitable for them. That's where they get all their money from,
Right.
or most of it anyway.
No, I can't blame it. It's just my issue is that because they do the same games every year, it's just not really interesting to watch.
Well, EA hasn't done a Titanfall in the last year, and they haven't done Mass Effect in the last year.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. Like, I would have...
Well, they did Star Wars, though.
They did.
Yeah, they did Star Wars last year, but...
Okay, so let's talk
This
about
year,
those four things, because those are actually the four things we care about, not the sports stuff.
Yeah, I don't care about EA Sports. They pay EA's bills, but...
Yeah.
You don't care about there being actual real-life football managers from the Premier League in the new FIFA game?
No, not at all.
Absolutely not.
I have trouble even believing that people who care about the Premier League actually care that there are managers in the game. What did the managers do to the gameplay? Like, all they did was add a model to the side of the field of a manager yelling.
Yeah.
How is that a selling point for your game? Like, you've gotten to the point where adding an additional model to the side of the field is a selling point. Like, it's not like you're already you are the manager. When you are playing FIFA, that's what you're playing as, the manager.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what is it? I don't even see how that's a selling point, but whatever. Let's
Yeah. Like I said during the press conference, it's good news for somebody.
Yeah, I guess. Let's talk about the other stuff. Okay, let's start with BioWare. The only BioWare presence really that we saw was a short trailer for Mass Effect Andromeda.
Mm-hmm.
Which was not showed next to no real gameplay. It didn't show any. I want to know how what it's like to play the game.
Yeah,
I want to know.
I think it like they looked like really beautiful environment and an interesting concept. But yes, I agree that the lack of
creatures, but at the same time, those are creatures. Those aren't like sentient alien races.
Right.
I would like to see EA do.
Well, all we saw
Something.
from that, it was basically just an over-the-shoulder. The closest thing that we got to gameplay was an over-the-shoulder, gun-pointy type
right
thing.
Yeah, and I want to know more about.
We got gameplay in the sense we saw a character moving, we saw the Mako rolling, but I think the thing that Matt is talking about specifically, and I think the thing that everyone wants to know about, is how the combat system works.
Yeah,
Exactly, and I want to know what they changed from Mass Effect 3. I want to know. I heard that there's going to be crafting and building like there was in Fallout 4, and I'm thinking to myself, if that's the case, then why are we not getting any of that? I want to know if there's going to be something on the show floor.
Yeah, definitely. I'm curious as to why so little was shown. It could just be, a issue of they didn't have enough time and they'll have more on the show floor. I hope that's what it is, because we are really getting quite close to release for how little has been released about this game.
Right. Well, you don't want to. I mean, if I'm thinking of it from EA's perspective, you might not want to just kind of blow everything during the press conference because you want the journalists and you want the YouTube personalities, the live streamers, you want them on the floor with their initial impressions, because that's going to be, it's going to generate more hype from a marketing standpoint than just showing everybody all at once some gameplay footage.
Yeah. Maybe. Hopefully they do have gameplay at the show, and they just are. You're right, and they're just holding that back, and they're going to show that to streamers and sites and such, and we'll still get that.
Think of how much stuff does get shown at E3, so-called behind closed doors.
Right. I mean, I would hope it's not behind closed doors at this point. I mean, this is supposed to launch before next E3.
Right.
So, this is their, like, I mean, obviously they can show more Gamescom and...
TGS, maybe?
Maybe, but I mean, Mass Effect...
Do they have a presence at TGS at all?
They don't usually... I mean, Mass Effect, the only time I can remember Mass Effect being at TGS was back when Microsoft published the first one, they had it there. But... EA, I don't think publishes many of their games in Japan. They might, but I feel like they even have a Japanese publisher publish stuff for them there. I don't think Mass Effect, like, it's bigger than a lot of Western games there. I know it does come over there, but I don't think it's a huge thing for them. And I mean, I can't imagine them showing that off at TGS.
Do people in Japan call Western RPGs WRPGs?
I don't think so, because the letters W, R, P, and G are not characters used in the Japanese language.
Well, I know. I know. But, I mean, do they differentiate the same way that we say JRPG?
I know what you're saying. I don't. I assume so. I don't know, honestly.
It'd be interesting to find out.
But
anyway,
yeah. So. It was, it looked nice. I wish there was a bit more from that, because I think it was the most interesting thing they showed. But
that's saying a lot, though. I mean, if that's the most interesting thing they showed,
would you disagree? Would you?
Well, how do you define interesting? Are you hyped? The most hype generating thing?
I think that's I mean, interesting. Just as this was interesting.
Because to be honest,
I don't know. How do you describe interesting?
Well, I didn't know much about Mass Effect Andromeda coming into this, and I don't really know much about it now, other than for some reason humanity never mind messing up Earth to the point that we have to leave. Now we've completely destroyed our own galaxy. I guess I don't know. The fact that we have to now move over to a whole different galaxy.
We didn't mess it up. The Reapers messed it up, man.
Well, okay, yeah. When I say we, I mean galactic citizens.
The Reapers aren't galactic citizens. They're from the edge of the galaxy. They're synthetic life forms. Or something. I don't know. The end of Mass Effect 3 didn't make a lot of sense. That reveal was like, what are you talking about? Anyways, I don't think the Reapers were members of our galaxy. But I'm not actually 100%
sure. Reapers kind of dwelled in dark space between galaxies. They go from galaxy to galaxy eating stuff.
I mean, I got that, but where are they from?
Birthed in ours, wound up attacking everybody else.
Whatever. Okay. Whatever happened, I'm pretty sure that our galaxy was destroyed by Reapers who are not from our galaxy. So it was not our fault for once.
Well, but see, the thing is, anyway, getting back to what we were saying, though, I mean, I don't have a whole heck of a lot to go on here either. I mean, I honestly can't say that I'm hyped or excited about anything because I just didn't see that much game footage.
That's true. It's true.
So,
but I guess the only reason I say I'm the most hyped about that is because none of the other things showed got me hyped at all. So it's literally by default.
that's a fair point. Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
because the only thing we really saw a significant amount of gameplay of was Battlefield 1.
Mm-hmm.
And like we've already talked in detail in the previous stream about why it doesn't necessarily look like EA is the right company to handle this war.
Mm-hmm.
And from watching that trailer, that it seems like most of our concerns have been validated.
Yeah, it's just going to be another like Anglo-centric war about how noble Britain was and how Britain absolutely wasn't just trying to look for an excuse to go to war with Turkey because some guy in Serbia shot nobleman from Austria-Hungary, and it's like, oh no, now everybody had to get drawn into like the British were just in there for completely opportunistic reasons.
Right.
Well,
It's just I think my concerns about Battlefield 1 have been realized. I'm sure the multiplayer will be good as all Battlefield multiplayer is, but I guess I'm not especially excited about a new Battlefield multiplayer.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if you took the footage, the gameplay, the stuff that looked like gameplay footage, driving down the tank, holding a gun, or loading
right.
the cannon or whatever, if you just reskinned that as using World War II technology or whatever Vietnam War technology, would anything be different?
Right, exactly.
And I think the answer is no, and that's one of the things that kind of has me soured about the whole thing.
Yeah, the one unique thing they did show the Zeppelin stuff, and that
Right.
is unique to World War One of all wars in human history.
Right.
But having a Zeppelin as your ultimate unlock or whatever in multiplayer, or as one level in the single player, does not justify setting the whole thing in World War One.
Right, especially if you're not going to, like we talked about before, if you're not going to really make the audience think about what they're doing. If you're not going to make them be introspective and consider the effects of what it actually means to be in a horrible, pointless, bloody war.
Right. So yeah, I guess I can't say I'm excited about that. If that was gameplay, it does look visually even better than Battlefield has in the past. So
Right.
Frostbite continues to be an incredibly impressive engine. I can say that about all of the trailers shown. Like, everything shown looked absolutely stunning. And Calvin, you keep saying if it actually was, because it almost looks unbelievably good at times. So from a visual perspective, I can't fault EA's tech teams, because their stuff does look absolutely visually incredible.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
That's not enough to get me interested in another Battlefield game.
They seem to go on and on about destruction and the weather cycles and everything. And again, it's like, if that's your selling point, you're touching on this period in history, this war that very few other games ever do, and you're talking about the fact that now it can rain all of a sudden, out of nowhere.
Right. Yeah.
Again, what's
I agree.
the point? What is the point?
Right, yeah, no, I absolutely agree. That I was really hoping they were going to talk about some modes that actually, some multiplayer modes that actually took advantage of the unique aspects of World War One, and that just was not the case at all. And maybe that was just because we're talking about an E3 press conference, and as we've said, Americans, when they start hearing, that their Anglo-Saxon peoples were not the greatest, they start tuning out. And so maybe it's just a matter of marketing, where they didn't want the reveal to get into some of the morally ambiguous stuff of that war, but they also didn't talk about any of the things that would make, from a mechanical sense, the battles of World War One unique.
Yeah.
Well, I think that with the mechanics, I think that when we see how few automatic weapons or even semi-automatic weapons there are,
right,
that's going to make a difference. It's going to change the way the game plays, and I think that for that reason alone...
it was weird that the first weapon we see firing was a submachine gun, and the first vehicle we see is a tank. Two weapons that, two things that weren't even in existence when the war started. Or, were in existence, but were still in the prototype stages, were not in the battle.
They weren't widely used.
Right. Yeah. And so, to open...
There were horses, though.
There were horses, yeah. But, to open the footage and have the majority of the footage show a battle sequence that almost could have been from World War II, kind of makes me wonder, why don't you just make a World War II game if this is what your focus is going to be? If you're not going to have a bunch of people sitting in trenches getting mustard gas and machine gun fire thrown at them, then, why are you making this war in the first place? Or, we did see a one shot from the Arabian Peninsula stuff, and that's obviously a very unique and interesting type of warfare that's very different than anything else shown. But again, that wasn't we saw one quick shot of horses running.
It's probably going to be 1, maybe 2 missions in the campaign, and
Right.
the horses may show up as a vehicle in some of the multiplayer stuff.
Right. But it's just like the stuff that makes World War I unique was not shown off in this trailer.
Right. Yeah.
This was a tank and some RPGs and some mortars and a submachine gun and stuff that exists in modern wars.
Now, why did they call it Battlefield 1? That's what I want to know.
Because it takes place in World War I.
No, I understand that, but I mean, I just don't understand this whole idea of. Why didn't they call it Battlefield World War I?
Because I don't know.
Doesn't
because
have the same ring to it.
Microsoft decided that you could just call something one that wasn't one and it would work. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because
no, it doesn't work. That's my point. It doesn't work at all.
I don't disagree with you, but I mean, I don't know. They ran out of names. They didn't want to call it 1917 or something.
But they should have. That would be perfect. They've all of their other. Well, not all of them, but the previous Battlefield games. Battlefield began by stating.
I know, but
you can place it.
But like, I think the reason they didn't do that is because they wanted to make it clear that this was the next in the current line of Battlefield titles, and it wasn't going back to the pure multiplayer focus of the series titles that began with 19 something.
Yeah.
So I think,
what do they call it then if they do a sequel to this one?
1-2.
1-2.
It's like 10-2 in Final Fantasy or 13-2.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in that case, they should have used the Roman numeral 1.
Yeah.
So that they could call it Roman numeral 1-2.
Yeah, that's what they should have done. Or Kingdom Hearts has 2.5 and 2.6 and 2.8.
And 2.8 now.
Yeah, so if they use Japanese numbering systems,
sure,
they can pretty much do whatever they want.
365 over 2.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay. Anyway, so what about Star Wars? Should we talk about Star Wars here?
There's very little to talk about.
There's nothing to talk about. They didn't really. They don't care about. EA doesn't really care about Star Wars.
I don't think they don't care.
They care, but they don't.
I just don't think they had anything.
They didn't have anything. Yeah. Everything is in like alpha or earlier.
Much earlier than alpha. I think they're pretty much still in the prototyping stages.
Mm-hmm.
Of most of this stuff. Obviously, Battlefront 2, they probably have only been working on it for like 6 months at most. So.
Oh, come on. No way. Battlefront 2. They must have been working on that before the launch of the first Battlefront.
No, I don't think they were.
Okay, so...
actually that would make sense because about why Battlefront 1 seems so rushed.
Well, okay, so they might have been doing pre-production because a lot of people are always complaining about this of studios starting one game before they finish a previous one, but you don't need a concept artist to do the final 3 months of your game development.
Right.
You don't need a mechanic designer to do the final 3 months of your game development. You don't need an engine programmer.
They were probably working on Battlefield 1 then.
Right, but to say that they went straight from that to, but no, because Battlefield 1 they would have need to do the prototyping phase last time, last year in like February or January. Like those have to be two entirely separate teams. But, I'm sure that they began the pre-production of Battlefront 2 before Battlefront 1 wrapped because at some point you don't need the people who are involved in pre-production when you're doing your final phasing of testing and polish. Those are
that's what I'm saying though. But I mean, 6 months. I mean, Battlefront 1 didn't come out 6 months ago, did it?
Yeah.
Or
about.
Oh, okay. Well, I just don't know.
I mean, 7 months. It came out in November, I think.
Oh, okay.
And
I thought it was longer. I thought it was longer ago than that.
No, yeah.
They launched Mirror's Edge. They launched.
Yes, they also launched Mirror's Edge.
Battlefield 1. So I'm hoping that DICE put in a lot of effort into into Battlefront 2 and actually take the time to make it every bit as polished as the Battlefield games are.
Well, but I don't think that the people who were working on Mirror's Edge were simultaneously.
No, DICE is obviously a studio that contains more than one team.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but I think that they stretched their teams too thin, and Battlefront wound up looking not nearly as polished as Battlefield 4, for instance. Battlefield 4, you could tell there were some really good production values on it.
I think Battlefield 4 is probably their least polished game ever.
Well, yeah, but I mean, are we talking about looks then? Because I mean, Battlefront.
We're talking about looks, and we're talking about gameplay. We're talking about how many weapons are in the game, attachments, how much content is there.
Let me point something
Battlefront had very little content.
Battlefield 4 had a lot of content, but it was also buggy and broken that DICE then had to spend a year fixing it. I think they course-corrected with Battlefront to not extend themselves too far and actually be able to make everything they had in at launch work. I think that was the difference of what you saw. It was them realizing that they had overextended themselves and that they needed to pull back. That it was better to get a polished product out than get an expansive product that didn't work.
Right, but I'd rather have something well, that's the problem, is they stretch themselves really thin, and then you have something like, which is content light, which...
I don't think for... Okay, here you have a couple issues here. One, when they were starting Battlefront, there was they didn't know yet if the new Disney Star Wars movies were going to be a hit, right? And so to tell them, okay, we're going to give you 4 years to make this game when we don't know actually if people are still interested in Star Wars because the last Star Wars movie was 15 years ago, that is not something an executive is going to do. Like, they want something quick that they can put out with the movie, and if the whole thing comes crashing down, they can wipe their hands clean of it. So, I think for the first time around, they're like, okay, we're giving them a modest budget because we don't know how well this thing's going to do, and we could spend an extra year adding more content, but there's a chance we won't make that money back, and we just don't know, and so the risk is too high for them to spend another year. So I think that's what you saw happen, was just, this was them trying to minimize the potential risk they were taking with this. And, yeah, I don't think DICE spread themselves too thin. I just don't think the budget was as big for Battlefront as it is for Battlefield.
It's not, I don't think it's that they were spread too thin. I think it's more that they just had a smaller team that was more focused on certain aspects of the game.
Right. Yeah, I think it was a very economic decision on EA's part of, the cost of doing this is going to be super high already, and we just want to try to make it so that we don't lose too much money if this goes wrong.
Matt, are you using a mechanical keyboard?
I am using Corsair, one with backlight. Corsair Vengeance K70 keyboard.
Okay. It's showing up really loud.
Yeah, we can hear your clicking.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a very loud keyboard. That's kind of why I bought it. Keys that are raised they're raised all the way up above the backlight.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't think like Battlefront was. I don't think DICE was not talented enough or spread themselves too thin. I just think that it was a conscious decision to make a smaller scale product the first time around.
And small scale doesn't work when you're a AAA developer.
Well, you got to start somewhere. I think there's also that, like, Battlefield, with each Battlefield, they're building on stuff that they have previously. With Battlefront, you're starting from scratch. And so it takes time to build up that level of content again. So, I understand like your frustration and everyone's frustration really with the lack of content in the first Battlefront, but I understand why it was that way, and I think you're going to see that rectified. But on the same token, I don't think they had it at a point yet where they could actually show us anything this year.
Right. Well, I don't know. That one guy That one guy's staying up really late working on something with his little
Yeah.
R2.
But Visceral's been working
Androids.
on their Star Wars game since they finished Dead Space 3 years ago, but they still had nothing to show in that trailer.
They had 3 seconds of gameplay from that.
Yeah, 3 seconds. That's like what is that?
But it's still 2 years from release, so.
It's the
Right,
people-
and also
the entire Dead Space team.
You just
And
were
what's
okay,
positive-
Matt. You were just complaining that you want them to spend the time to actually put a lot of content in their game.
I know.
So you have to accept that if you
But-
want them that much content, then it's going to take more than 2 or 3 years to make the game.
But there should still be enough pre-alpha footage.
But why show pre-alpha footage? It's not going to look good. It might not end up being in the game, and then everyone will yell at EA for doing a graphical downgrade or showing content that they knew was not going to be in the game. Like, there are way too many.
like Gearbox.
Right. Like, why?
At that point, the question is why then show a Star Wars trailer in the first place if they're not going to show anything from it?
Because they want people to know how all the cool people they have working on it. And they had 5 minutes free in their show that they had nothing else to put. I don't know.
It might not have been Visceral's decision. It might have been EA
Right?
saying,
Yeah, I think EA wanted to do a sizzle reel of all the Star Wars people they have working on Star Wars stuff. Maybe it was even built into their contract with Disney.
and it's probably for them, for EA. I think it's more about the people.
Right?
It's
One, it brings awareness to the fact that they're working on these. 2, it's good for the developers to, be able to talk about it. That's something that's really tough that people don't realize for a game developer. You work on something for 2-3 years and you have nothing to show for it yet. That's, it can be really disheartening and really dispiriting. So a lot of that is getting the morale up amongst the team, and, a lot of times E3 trailers end up really defining the direction that the game goes in, because you have to get a playable vertical slice ready, and so there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. Even if you aren't really ready to show anything and you don't have anything to show, you might still show it just to just a bunch of different reasons that have nothing to do with actually showing consumers what you have coming up.
And of course, EA still refuses to do Jade Empire 2.
I'm still
Or Dead Space 4.
I
was hoping for some surprise announcement to be there with those games, and instead we got no real new game announcements, no new surprise announcements.
We got one in that EA Originals platformer, or whatever it was.
Yeah, but it's a platform
Maybe it's a platform. I don't know. I couldn't really tell, honestly. There was something about music going on there, but it didn't look like you were playing music, so I don't know. But that looked interesting, at least. I like the concept of EA Originals.
Yeah.
The supporting of unique concepts, but giving them the budget to make something that looks really cool, and giving a lot of the profit from the game back to the developer. I think that's all really cool stuff.
He said all the profit.
Yes, he did.
We think is that true? Because what?
Well, at the same time, that platformer Fee looked actually like it was pretty good. It looked like a pretty good idea, because it's like the same thing that Square Enix are doing with Collective.
Yeah.
My question is, what is EA's incentive to give all of their profit away? I mean, we are talking about EA here. Are they raking in that much FIFA and Madden money that they just have all this cash burning a hole in their pocket?
Well, they're taking some money from Originals. They're taking they're taking a cut of it.
Right.
The difference is the fact that they either take a small cut, or the indie publisher doesn't get distribution, and EA gets nothing from it.
I wonder how they're defining profits.
That's what I was going to say. Profit is money that you earn over the cost of development and marketing.
Right.
So they're saying they're getting 100% of the profit. They are going to, I guarantee you, they're going to take money until they break even, at which point all additional money will go to the developer.
Yeah, they're giving the profit from the developer's standpoint. The profit is everything they make after they paid their fees to EA, probably.
Correct. Well, it's not that they don't have fees. It's EA is going to put up a bunch of money to develop the game and market the game. Once that money is earned back, that's when developers start getting paid. And mind you, this is true of any development contract you sign. Whether or not you're getting 100% of it or not, you don't get anything until after the publisher makes their cut.
No, but my point is, though, that EA is just going until they break even then?
Correct. That is what at least what he said.
That's what he implied by what he said. So then my question is, what is their incentive to do this? Do they really care that much about generating just goodwill?
I think they do.
Do they?
I think so. Like, they have their EA on the house thing on Origin.
After their bad couple of years getting voted the worst company in America.
I think they've worked really hard the past several years to get back in gamers' good graces after some really awful press. So, yes, I honestly think they're doing this entirely because it makes them look good. And also, the PC versions they can then sell on Origin. And they can add new games to their EA Access program without having to add every single FIFA and Battlefield game.
Ah, right, yeah, and they are collecting payment for that as well.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
So there's a lot of reasons why it adds value to their brand and to their business to make these games even if they are not making money off of them. And mind you, I have a feeling they're only going to be, simple 2D platformer type stuff like we're seeing.
Sure.
Like
I said, it's sort of reminiscent of the UbiArt framework, where you got games like Valiant Hearts and
the
Child
difference
of
being
Light.
that the UbiArt stuff was developed in-house at Ubisoft,
Right.
and this is developed by external studios.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's an interesting idea, and I hope it works out for them because, I miss that indie, high quality indie stuff because really
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Sony's the only company that's been really giving big budgets for indie developers.
To be honest with you, no, actually, let me change my answer, because that game, Fey or Fee or however you're pronouncing it, that was the most interesting thing that they showed. For me, anyway.
Yeah, I guess that probably is true, actually. So there was Battlefield. We talked about. There was Star Wars. There was Mass Effect. Oh, we forgot all about Titanfall 2.
Oh yes, yes, of course.
We were obviously all very excited about Titanfall 2 because we all forgot about it the minute after the trailer finished. You weren't even here. You missed it. There was Optimus Prime. It didn't look like Optimus Prime, but it sounded like Optimus Prime.
Sure, yeah.
And there was a little robot human that he was helping, like Optimus Prime does, and pretty much it was Transformers the game. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Well, he didn't transform, and he wasn't named Optimus Prime, though. So.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, well, whatever. I did watch. I did pull it up on YouTube a few minutes before the press conference, the teaser trailer that they had for it, and again, without a whole heck of a lot of gameplay footage to go off of, I don't really know what to say. I don't know what to say.
They had a gameplay trailer for the multiplayer as well.
Oh, okay.
And that did show a couple new mechanics that utilize a grappling hook.
Oh, okay.
So for that. The two things they showed, one was obviously grappling up the side of buildings to quickly get away from Titans, and the other was grappling an enemy to draw them towards you, a la Scorpion from Mortal Kombat. So they did show a couple new mechanics with the grappling hook wise. Matt, did you notice any other new mechanics they showed?
Not many, but they said they're going to have a lot more different types of. They're going to have twice as many different types of Titans. They're going to have
they did
new
say that.
types of weapons, new types of equipment.
Yeah. Yes, they also. I mean, I think Titanfall suffered from a very similar problem to the first Battlefront in that it just lacked content. So it does look like the main thing they're focusing on is just adding a lot more to it.
Well, good for them. I mean, look, I always hope that things work out well for developers, even though I'm not interested or invested in the game personally or whatever. But I hope that it does well for them, and I hope that the people who are interested in it enjoy it.
Yeah, that's pretty much my opinion on most of EA's lineup.
Yeah, and who knows? I mean, if more gameplay surfaces, when more gameplay footage surfaces, I may be one of those people who winds up interested in it. So,
I guess the most interesting thing about Titanfall to me was they did not have a Frostbite logo at the front of it. So it was not Frostbite. It did not look like Source. It looked too visually impressive for a Source engine game.
Ouch.
Well, no, Source was probably the most advanced engine ever made at the time. It's just
No, I know.
It's 20 years old now or something.
Sure, yeah.
So it's just an old engine. So it looked a lot more visually advanced than a Source game. No Frostbite logo, no Unreal logo. So I'm curious if it is Source 2, and Valve just hasn't made a logo thing for the front of trailers yet for Source 2, or if they developed their own engine internally, or if they are just using a very heavily modified version of the Source engine, which wouldn't surprise me because they've, the Source engine is, at its core, a modified version of the Quake 3 engine, which is the exact same thing that Infinity Ward used for Call of Duty, so it could just be that they're just continuing to modify that same engine they've been using since Quake 3. But that's honestly the most interesting thing I can say about Titanfall, is I'm curious to see what the tech behind it is. Especially because there was very low player counts in the first game and still frame rate issues. So I'm curious, and a big reason for that is that the Source engine was developed before you had multiple cores in your processors, so it's not multi-threaded.
Well, but I mean, things like Counter-Strike were still running on Source, though, weren't they?
They are, but
how many players is there in a typical Counter-Strike match?
That's up to the server.
Or Team
runner.
Fortress or whatever.
I
16.
think
16 for both.
Yeah.
I think on official servers, it's like 16. It's not super high, but also those are games that do not have giant titans in them. So.
Well, yeah, fair point. And huge.
So I think that's the whole 64-player thing. That's going to be as big. The maps are going to be as big as Battlefield.
Yeah, they did. Matt heard them say something about 64 players. I missed that phrase, but if they do have 64 players, that definitely means that it's not a Source engine game. Because Source, you'll also recall, has to load in once it hits the edge of a certain environment. If you remember playing Half-Life 2...
Yeah, I think it's going to be Frostbite, and that every EA game is going to be... I think that every EA game now is Frostbite.
But Respawn is not an internal EA studio. They're an independent developer. And every other game at that press conference that was using Frostbite opened with a logo of Frostbite.
So I'm not sure what language they're using.
Yeah, that is why...
Unity!
No, it's not Unity.
Unity
honestly,
is more...
It could be...
Unity is more for RPGs and platformers.
No, you can make a shooter in
I
Unity.
know, I'm just kidding.
You absolutely... No, let me be clear. You absolutely could make that game in Unity. It just wouldn't run very well on consoles because Unity also is not super well supporting... doesn't support multi-threading super well. But you absolutely could make that exact game in Unity. It's just... It would have to be a PC exclusive at that point. So... I doubt it's Unity. But, no, Unity is, you can make virtually anything in Unity. The same way you can make virtually anything in Unreal.
Yeah.
Maybe it's CryEngine. I feel like, no, because every CryEngine game starts with the Made with CryEngine logo. That's the thing, it's weird to see a big-budget game with no engine logo at the beginning.
Is it possible it's an in-house engine, though? I mean,
it is
a proprietary.
It's possible. Like I said, Infinity Ward used a proprietary engine that was based off Quake 3. And so this could be a proprietary engine based off Source, which was based off Quake 3. That's a possibility.
Because then they wouldn't have... Because the thing about Unreal and CryEngine and all those is that, I mean... As part of, if you're going to use those, then you have to put the logo in front.
Right, exactly. That's the thing. It's the only real options are an internal engine. They could have used Frostbite and just not put the logo because it is an EA thing. So it's not like they contractually obligated, I guess. Or so it's internal Frostbite or Source 2.
Well, anyway.
Yeah,
let's not.
It doesn't matter super much, but it was just honestly the only tiny bit of mystery about that whole press conference was that for me. So, so it seems as usual, EA a pretty boring press conference. I'm really waiting for the year that EA just blows my mind.
Well, they'll blow my mind when they announce Jade Empire and Dead Space sequels.
Well, I'm gonna say Jade Empire, probably no chance whatsoever.
Oh, come on. What do you have against Jade Empire?
I have nothing against Jade Empire. I'm just, like, we know what all the teams at BioWare are working on.
I know, and I'm hoping that
And
they move some of the Austin guys or hire some more people at Austin or maybe grow the Edmonton offices. I mean, Dragon Age and Mass Effect both sell pretty well.
yes, so I don't know, like, they're not
They
going to
could
get
grow-
either of those teams to make a different series until one of those series stops
Right,
making
but my
money.
point is the fact that they both generate enough profit for EA for BioWare to grow further, and the Old Republic also.
Yes, they did grow further.
They
They
love
have a
it.
new IP that they've been working on for like 5 years now that they still haven't shown anything of.
Yeah, and my point is the fact that they could grow further and just do a Jade Empire too, because I think
I mean, they could, but, you know, at that point, you're not having any of the original developers on it, because they're all working on other stuff. So it's a sequel in name only, really.
Also, is Jade Empire more of a cult classic, or
Yes.
is it popular enough that it would be?
Classic. That's the other thing. Like, the cost of making a Jade Empire sequel that lives up to the original would be extraordinarily high, and I don't think it was financially successful enough to make that a worthwhile endeavor for them.
Right.
Then of course Faye also looks
Yeah.
like it looks like an interesting. I think that looks like an interesting platformer, but when it comes
Well,
to platformers,
I guess what I'm curious about that.
Ukulele, I think, had a bit more personality to it.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious
Yeah.
about that. They kept mentioning music and silence as like elements of the story, and made it seem like that might have been a mechanic. So that could make it, you know, a somewhat unique thing.
It did seem like there was some kind of thing where your character blasted some kind of sound thing to get other characters' attention or to.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
guess the use of music and sound could make it very interesting, but it wasn't entirely clear how that mechanic worked.
Yeah.
So that's EA. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
no mention of Criterion's title that they've been working on. No mention of EA or BioWare. Is it at Edmonton they're doing the new IP? I think.
I think that's at Edmonton, yeah.
Yeah. So no mention of those two games, and Faye was the only newly announced game that we saw.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
And it was
that's
also
still-
the
But at the same time, it's like platformers making a comeback.
Yeah. No. I
Yeah.
like that.
I mean, as somebody out there who loved the shit out of the Banjo-Kazooie games and
uh-huh.
Spyro the Dragon, Ape Escape, Donkey Kong 64.
I always hated the N64 controller and thought those games controlled like shit.
Well, Spyro and Ape Escape were on PlayStation.
I like Spyro. I
Yeah.
specifically meant the rare developed ones on N64 that controlled like shit.
Well,
Oh
those
come
are
on, Banjo-Kazooie was
Banjo-Kazooie.
was good. I mean, you were
good,
Banjo-Kazooie. You were
At
able
least
to at
not-
least look past the bad controller.
No, I never even
you-
bought an N64. I hated that controller. I thought every game on that
can
platform
play it-
controlled awfully.
They
I'm
remastered it
just
on
being
Xbox
honest. I
and Xbox
hated
One.
that system.
If you have an Xbox 360 or Xbox One, you can buy it digitally.
I know I've almost done that several times, honestly, because I like the concept of the 3D platformer. It's just that its heyday was on a system that I despise.
But at the same time, the games still hold up well today. They hold up very well.
Yeah. My problem is I don't have an Xbox One, and my Xbox 360 is not hooked up to the internet right now.
Ah, man. Well,
Yep. And I'm saving all my money for that new
You know
PC
what?
I'm working on.
Use
Somebody out there who did grow up with those games, I think that Faye is in the same category as Ukulele, is just being
Yeah.
something that very, very much interests me.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that those types
Like
of games.
I played
that-
Banjo-Kazooie at like friends' houses, and like the doctor's offices always had Banjo-Kazooie in them for some reason. I don't know.
what?
Well,
Doctor's
Banjo-Tooie-
offices?
Yeah,
Don't
like
forget that, Banjo-Tooie
like
multiplayer was great.
there was like both my doctor and my dentist growing up had Banjo-Kazooie in their office waiting room.
You have got to be kidding me.
I'm not kidding you at all.
I've
That's
been going to
like
long doctors.
like most of my experience with playing Banjo-Kazooie was at a doctor's office waiting for the doctor.
Well, I was going to say Banjo-Tooie multiplayer. Did you ever play that?
No, I never played Banjo-Kazooie
like-
with anyone else because I was at the doctor's office.
That game was great. They had a first-person shooter mode and a soccer game,
and
you just said
other
first-person
mini-games.
shooter on an N64, which makes me think of GoldenEye, which makes me hate my life.
Oh man, it played just like GoldenEye, same developer.
I understand. GoldenEye was awful. That was one of the worst controller
What?
games ever made.
No, man, I sunk so many hours into GoldenEye as a kid.
Please tell me you did not also own a PC that was capable of playing first-person shooters at the time.
I did not. I tried to
Okay,
sell.
that's the only reason you think that, because if you would play Quake and Unreal and such, then you wouldn't think that.
Here's the
I
problem
went
with
back,
GoldenEye.
played them, and
Here's
but
the-
Perfect Dark still holds up well today. I mean,
No, it
they
doesn't.
put that on the. They put
No,
Perfect
it
Dark
doesn't.
on
No. Wait a minute. Wait. Okay. All right. I will agree with Seth that the N64 controller was a travesty for almost every game that was released on the system. But the
Did
thing
you
about
play Turok
GoldenEye,
Remastered on PC, or did you play Perfect Dark on the Xbox 360?
I played... Let's see. I played the GoldenEye that Activision released on 360. Is that the same game?
No.
No.
I was
Okay,
gonna
nope,
say,
never played
Turok is on. You can play Turok Dinosaur Hunter on PC. Game still holds up well despite being developed for the N64 controller. Or on the Xbox 360 and Xbox One, they remastered Perfect Dark with HD graphics. But
Yes,
it's the
I
same
saw
game.
that.
And it is damn good. It still holds up well today.
but here's
They
what you
have-
needed to do though, if you wanted to play FPSs effectively on the N64, is you had to switch from the standard default control scheme. So the one that GoldenEye came with had you moving forward and turning with the analog stick on your left hand, and
Well,
then
they changed that on the Xbox 360 version.
right. But you could switch it in the N64's menu. You could switch it to where you were moving forward and strafing with the C buttons, and then just looking around with the stick, which is the way the original Turok Dinosaur Hunter control scheme was. And that is the best way to play first-person games on the N64.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I just had an N64 as a kid, and I have so many good memories of that.
It's honest, like, you're not the only one. There are a ton of people who did not have a PC at the time who only played N64 shooters and have good memories of them. But any single person who also had a PC will tell you that N64 shooters were awful.
Well,
Well-
Turok 2 is one of the great. I still think that Turok 2 holds up well.
Again, it's specifically on the N64. If we're talking about PC ports, then fine. It's just that the controller was awful for first-person shooters.
Right,
And
but
they're actually remastering it for PC. Turok 2.
Yeah.
They're working on it now.
wow, really, who's taking that over?
Night Dive Studios.
Okay, and who's publishing it? Because I know Acclaim is long gone.
Night Dive.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Did they
Yeah,
buy
they
the
did.
IP in the Acclaim sell-off, I guess, probably? No, Disney bought it.
And then they bought it from Disney because Disney didn't want it anymore.
Yeah, I remember that now.
Because the Disney Interactive Turok reboot was pretty bad.
Yeah, I never played that one.
Oh,
I actually never
think
played
that
any Turok game.
personally, what I would do if I were Valiant Entertainment is I would try to buy back the rights to the Turok comics from Dynamite. Well, actually, they're owned by DreamWorks, who are licensing them to Dynamite Entertainment. But Dynamite Entertainment canceled the comic because it wasn't selling well.
That's because it was a Turok comic, man.
Yeah, the Turok
You're
comics
letting
sold well.
you're letting your nostalgia is blinding you right now to the fact that those games were probably not very good.
I just played through all of Turok Dinosaur Hunter again on PC, and it was damn good.
No,
Okay.
but no. But you're playing it again because you remember what it was like
Yes,
as a kid.
Well, they also fixed the draw distance.
okay. I mean, that's a massive improvement, but
They fixed the game plays faster. It's plays at 60 frames per second. Movement speed is faster. Enemies are faster.
like I'm sure it's probably okay, but yeah, it's just a lot of N64 games and PS1 games even more. Like the only way you can enjoy them is if you like have memories of playing them as a kid.
Well, the Final Fantasy games hold up well today. Siphon Filter, not so much.
Like Final Fantasy, like not recently, like 5 years ago or so, I tried to play Final Fantasy VII when they released it on PSN for the PS3.
Mm-hmm.
And I got maybe about 10 hours in before I'm like, I can't take this. This looks so awful and it's so slow.
Well, I still think it holds up well because it's a menu-based RPG, and it doesn't. have the same bog issues that a lot of PS1 games had.
No, like it holds up better than like trying to play Tomb Raider, mind you. But
Yeah, oh god, the Tomb Raider. I didn't even like Tomb Raider at the time because the controls were just. It took
Right.
forever to just turn around.
See, I don't think Tomb Raider is that bad. I played through the first two within the last few years, and I thought they were still decent.
I
thought
agree
they
with
only
Matt.
had-
I hated them even at the time. I even played them on PC where they didn't have awful frame rates and visuals.
And they still weren't all that great.
Yeah.
Well,
Tomb
whatever.
Raider
Difference of
only really
opinion.
got good when they just did the newest reboot. When they
Yeah.
did the
No,
reboot.
this one, I'll have to agree with Matt on this one.
Really, even the PS2 era ones.
Those were like the worst ones, man.
Yeah.
Well, no, one of them was
Legend was stuff that I think that Legend was fun, but at the same time, Anniversary playing it on PC, Legend is okay. Anniversary, on the other hand, has a bug that deletes your save files, and Tomb Raider Underworld is horribly optimized even with current gen hardware to the point where you still get single-digit frame drops.
Yeah, Legends was the only I played Legends on the 360 and it was okay. I never finished it. It wasn't even worth finishing to me. The first Tomb Raider game I finished was the reboot.
Yeah, that one, the reboot was great, and I think that it really made it. I think that for a game called Tomb Raider, the games needed more exploration, and I think that the new Tomb Raider, by giving players the ability to backtrack through levels and going really with the Metroidvania design, I think was needed, and I think that's why it worked, and that's why I loved it, and I played through that as well as the sequel, and I thought they were both great.
See, I actually was not crazy about the reboot, but whatever. Difference of opinion.
Yeah, so. I think that the reboot is a tough thing because it was very different than the original games, and if you had fond memories of them, you weren't going to like it as much. But as someone who didn't like the original games, I thought they were great.
Right, because it's not a real Tomb Raider game.
Right, it's one of those things where you're judging it as a fan, and it's hard to look at it objectively as a game when it's called Tomb Raider and it's not like Tomb Raider of old. But, for me, it doesn't matter if it's like a Tomb Raider of old because Tomb Raider of old was awful, so, you know, that doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I think that, again, when you say Final Fantasy, I think that I still think that those games hold up well. You can hate me for saying it, but those games...
here's what I'll say. I think that the PS1 ones hold up better than 10 and 10-2 does because they had the awful voice acting.
I still like 10-2.
So, I don't think I could... I honestly don't think I could play through 10 even with all the fancy visuals they've done because it would still sound so bad.
Well, I still like 10 and 10-2. I still think that from a gameplay perspective, they were interesting, and I think that 10-2 more
I
so
still
than 10.
really enjoyed 12. 12 is probably the one I've enjoyed the most of all Final Fantasy games.
12 is the only one that I didn't play.
12 is honestly the only Final Fantasy I've truly enjoyed.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not a big Final Fantasy person. I've never liked them.
Oh.
I've tried playing through a ton of different ones, and I've never actually beaten one, honestly.
Even the Super Nintendo era ones, like 6?
I've never tried 6 in specific. I was not a fan of... I tried the NES ones. I wasn't a fan of those. I never tried 6. Didn't enjoy the PS1 ones. I just think they're way too slow for me. And I didn't find them very tactical, honestly. And the ones I've enjoyed, I enjoyed Final Fantasy Tactics. I enjoyed Final Fantasy 12. I thought the battle system in Final Fantasy 13 was pretty cool, but the rest of the game was insufferable.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I liked 13, but it was just too long.
13 wasn't open.
Long. It was just
13 was not open world, and the reason why I like Final Fantasy is because it is open world.
13 was just it took too long to open up. Yeah. That's
here's the thing, though.
12 was also pretty linear, but 12 at least had stores that had people to talk to.
12 wasn't linear. 12 had giant open
not 12,
areas.
I mean 10 was linear.
Yes, 10 was linear. 12 was like the opposite of linear. 12 was almost MMO-like.
I meant to say 10. 10 was also linear, but 10, at the end of the game, it opened up a lot, and you could backtrack, and you still, even when going through the linear path, you still could go through towns. You could still have mini games. It
Yeah.
was 13 was just one long slog through a bunch of battles, and battle cuts.
It did open up
the
at
Call
the
of
end.
Duty of RPGs.
Right, but 7 did the same thing. 7, it took you basically was very linear throughout Midgar. Maybe it didn't last quite as long as 13, but it was
Last quite
still
as long. And even then, in Midgar, you could still have like towns and mini games and stuff like that. Then once you get to it was in Midgar was a very memorable.
Yeah, honestly, like I would say that the Midgar section worked. One, because the entire concept of a scripted linear section in an RPG was a new concept, and two, I still think that part specifically holds up. I just think it's a really well done intro, the Midgar portion.
And then they did I still think that 7 worked because once you get out of there, it's all open world, and Midgar's more of a tutorial.
Honestly,
Well,
like
the thing is,
7 lost me honestly soon after you left Midgar, because my problem with Final Fantasy open worlds is that there's nothing to do in them. They're open worlds only in the sense that you can choose where you want to walk, but if you don't walk in the right direction, there's nothing there.
Basically, all you can do is just go around and grind. That's
Right.
All the open world. That's what
you
bothers
could
me.
Gold Saucer in 7, and then in
But there's
8,
nothing. There's no other objectives. Like if I'm playing an Elder Scrolls
in 8 and 9,
game,
and in 9 you also had all those different items you could grind for, secret items that you had to go through side
again,
quests.
everything revolved around grinding and fighting the same random battles over and over again. It's not like in an open world for me works if it's like a GTA open world or even a Skyrim open world where there are more things to do than just grind the same battles over and over. That's where Final Fantasy has always lost me, is in the random open battles, the random battles crossing through the overworld, because there's nothing else to do.
Well, again, I was going to say there's plenty of towns. 9 definitely tried to do something a bit differently, where they definitely had a lot of towns to go back and visit and a lot of side quests to complete. They did a much better job with that, and they still had the same card game from 8.
But again, the quests are all go kill this thing. There's no unique gameplay moments. And again, I understand there are a couple mini games in each one, but there's not the variety that you see in a standard modern open world sandbox game.
Well, they were good for their time, and if we didn't have Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9, we would
I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that at all. I'm just saying that's why for me they don't hold up, is because in the decades since, we've gotten open world games and open world RPGs that offer so much variety and unique things to do. And going back to Final Fantasy,
at the same time, when you talk about how there's only limited NPCs, you talk about limited NPCs and how
most of it's just a big open world with random encounters. How is that different from Borderlands?
It isn't. I think Borderlands also is quite boring. Honestly, Borderlands, I guess the only reason I stuck through Borderlands is just because I thought the actual shooting was pretty fun.
Yeah, the shooting mechanics were great in Borderlands.
I guess that's the other issue with Final Fantasy, is I don't like the active time combat system. I just never found it very interesting.
Well, they got rid of it in 10.
Yeah, I honestly never played 10.
Focusing on new battle systems with each game, and I think that
15 is going to be pretty interesting because it's
going
to be
honestly, 15 is what I'm most interested in, because I did finish Kingdom Hearts. I do like Nomura's battle styles.
And I think that, they're doing a whole new battle style that's definitely much more real-time combat, while at the same time bringing back the open world.
Yeah, and I'm not against real-time combat, but the issue with the turn-based combat in Final Fantasy is just I never felt it gave you a lot of options.
Right.
I actually I don't have a 3DS, so I haven't tried it, but I've been interested in trying Bravely Default.
I don't have a 3DS, so I've never even heard of that. I think I've heard of it a little bit. But.
It's supposed to be similar to your classic Final Fantasy from the SNES era, but it adds some really interesting tactical wrinkles to the battles.
I do have a 3DS, but I don't have it. I've been interested in trying it myself too.
There are a couple things that interest me about it. One, what you can do is save your attack for one turn and use it the next turn. So you can store up attacks, or you can use next attack's turn on this turn and not have an attack for next turn.
Well, does that make it more powerful then if you save it?
No.
What's the advantage to doing that?
Well, if you use 2 attacks on this turn, you could take out the enemy before they can hit you at all.
Well, right. Okay. So then, what's the advantage to saving an attack? Having another character attack for you?
No, well, when you save it, then you can do 2 hits at once, which might combo or something. I don't know exactly.
Oh,
honestly.
okay.
Yeah, basically, there's a tactical level of deciding when to attack and how much to attack. Because remember, if you use, you can use 4 attacks in a row or something, but then you are stunned essentially for 4 turns after that. So there's a tactical element of when do I go all out and use all the attacks I have available to me and try to take this guy out this turn, because if it doesn't work, I'm dead, essentially. And so there's a really interesting risk-reward system there that's really fascinating to me. And the other mechanic they have that I really like, I think it's like possibly the best thing they've ever invented in a random encounter-based RPG, is you can choose the random encounter rate. So if you want to grind for levels, you can have random encounter occur every single step.
Oh wow!
and so and I believe you can even just go from one random encounter to another and not even go back to the overworld. Or alternatively, you can set it so there are no random encounters at all if you're leveled up and you just want to get back to town.
Right.
So you basically you get the best of both worlds there. So I think that's a super cool idea, because that's also something that's always frustrating me with Final Fantasy open worlds, is when I've gotten to the point where I don't want to grind anymore and I just want to go back to town.
Yeah. No, I will agree with you on that.
So I really love that idea of a player-controlled random encounter rate, and I love that you have your a battle system that adds a layer of tactics beyond selecting the right attack. So I that's one I've always been interested in playing. But yeah, the standard Final Fantasy combat system from the PS1 days and SNES days just never worked for me.
No, that's fair.
Like I said, I really liked the Final Fantasy 13 combat system. I thought the combat system in 12 was at least bearable. But yeah, that's Final Fantasy for me.
I think it's telling about EA that we've gone from a discussion about their press conference to N64 first-person shooters to Square RPGs.
Occasionally EA will have something interesting at their press conference, but most of the time I find their press conference the most difficult one to sit through. Because so much of their stuff is either sports stuff or Sims stuff. Usually there was no Sims stuff this year. That was very nice.
Yeah.
But then this year we got another Battlefield, a 2-second trailer for Mass Effect Andromeda, a Star Wars thing that did not actually show any new Star Wars, and then a ton of Titanfall and Battlefield. And it's just like, sorry, not interested.
Yeah, well, whatever. Are we doing a Bethesda stream tonight?
Yes, we are.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna come back for that, but I do have to get going now.
I have to too. I want to go eat dinner before we do all that stuff.
Yeah, I definitely need to. I didn't even have lunch because I just jumped on Facebook and saw, oh, we're recording, and I'm like, oh shit, gotta get here right now.
Okay.
So I gotta have dinner. I gotta shower.
Okay. So everyone who is listening in on us, we will be back half an hour before Bethesda's conference starts. That's I believe.
It's at 9. Well, I'm thinking of Central. It's 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific.
Right. So, and for those of us in Central, that means it starts at 9. So we'll be back at 8:30 / 9:30 Eastern or 6:30 Pacific. Right. Something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
You know what? YouTube will tell you what time the show is starting for you.
You're right. We'll just call it. Let's just call it about. I don't know what. 2 hours from now.
It's about 2 hours from now. It's half an hour or so before the Bethesda press conference starts.
Yeah. Okay.
So we'll see everyone then. Bye.
All right. Bye.
All right.